welcome back everyone. This is our second video in our tutorial on the fundamentals of programming using Java. Last time we talked about the main method and how important it is and how everything in Java is organized into a class. Next we're going to talk about the building blocks of programming. And what are the building blocks of programming? The building blocks of programming are essentially variables or data types. So we're going to talk about data types in this video. So what are data types? Well, the goal of programming in the first place is to manipulate data. So what kind of data can we have? Well, we can have numbers, letters, words, all sorts of data, but essentially they all boil down to numbers. So first we're going to start by learning 6 numerical data types. They are primitive data types and some stuff about them. So the first data type we're going to learn about is called the byte. Alright, so, well, first let's talk about why there are many of them in the first place. So why don't we just have one type of data type for numbers and just one type for everything else? So the reason is that each of these data types are used for different situations. For the instance of a byte as we have now, a byte can only hold 8 bits of data. So let's start by naming this byte. What are we going to name this byte? Let's call it our first number. Alright, so right now we have a variable called first number and it's of type byte. So this byte can only hold 8 bits of information. So let me make a comment right here so you can see that this variable can only hold 8 bits of information. So that's why we have different types, because they all have different values. So the next one going up in size, I'm going to do this in size starting with the smallest. The byte is the smallest. So the next one going up in size will be the short. And let's call this our second number. Alright, so now we have a variable called second number of type short. Now, why is the short different from the byte? Well, they're both small, but the second number, which is of type short, can only hold 16 bits. So I'll put a comment here so we know that the second number can only hold 16 bits because it is of type short. Alright, so what's interesting to note about these two variable types is that they are numerical data types. So you couldn't put a string or a word, for instance, like the hello universe. We couldn't put hello universe inside of a byte because a byte is not a string of characters. It is for holding numbers. So let's go up in size, and our next data type is the int, which stands for integer, as you could probably guess. So we're going to call this variable our third number. And we are going to say that, well, in actuality, this variable can only hold 32 bits of information. So you can see we're going up in size, and a byte is the smallest, a short is next, and then the int is the next largest. And the int is probably the most commonly used data type because it is an integer. We all know what an integer is. It's a value from negative infinity all the way to positive infinity. So going up in size, next we have the long data type, and we'll call this our fourth number. And a long can hold, now a long, we can definitely tell just by looking at it that, okay, well, a long is definitely going to be larger than an int and a short and a byte all combined. So this data type can hold up to 64 bits. That's the largest we have so far. So we can kind of tell by looking at these data types, just by looking at the words and how they're named, that we know that one is larger than the other and they are different. That's why we have so many different ones. That's why we don't just have int alone, because we have all these other variables that will hold different amounts of information. So next we have what we call, now all of these so far are just numerical values that are just straight numbers, alright, just regular numbers. But now we're going to talk about a float and a double. Float and double are two different data types. Now what's different about these data types is that they hold decimal values. So we're going to type float here, and you can see these data types right here are in dark blue and they're bold. So these are words that you can't type as a name of a variable. So in naming conventions, you cannot type byte and just leave it. You can't have byte or short because these words are already reserved for Java, the Java programming language. So what you see right here is a legal way of declaring a variable. So we got first number, and I'm using camel case, and then we've got second number, we've got third number, and fourth number because, again, just like in the beginning when we typed hello universe and gave us an error, okay, Java is not recognizing this as a keyword of its own or a language specification. So we are allowed to use that as the name of a variable. And Java automatically knows that right here in this position, okay, this is where the name of the variable will go. All right, so coming back to the float, this is a decimal value. So we're going to call this our fifth number. And let me spell that right. All right, our fifth number. And a float can hold 32 bits. All right, so now, and I still spelled number wrong. All right, so now back to float. It holds 32 bits. So now it's kind of like an alternating pattern, right? We know that the int right here is holding the same amount as a float, which is 32 bits. All right, so this will be a decimal value. Now, the next up is double, and we're going to call that our sixth number. All right, so this double value, goodness gracious, can hold 64 bits. All right, so these are all of our values that hold numerical data. All right, so in the next video, we'll talk about the other data types because they're not numerical, but these are indeed numerical data types. So just to recap, we have a byte that is capable of holding 8 bits. Can't have any more than 8 bits. We have a short that is capable of only holding 16 bits. We can't have any more than 16 bits. You can have less, but no more than 16 bits. We have an int, which is capable of holding 32 bits. We have a long, which is capable of holding 64 bits. We have a float, which is capable of holding 32 bits. And then finally, we have the double, which is capable of holding 64 bits. All right, so now that we've got that defined, I'm actually going to show you how we can store numerical data inside of these data types. So I'm actually going to just get rid of these right here so we can add information inside of these data types as that is what they are for. All right, so we're going to start with the byte, and we just, to add a value to this, come inside this, and we type the equal sign. This is the equation symbol, and that's what we use to say, okay, this is a byte and I've named it first number, but I want to add something inside of it instead of just saying, okay, I've got a variable that I'm not using. So now what are we going to add inside of this byte? A byte holds only 8 bits, so it only has small numbers, so it's appropriate that we use only a small number. So, and it's a range between negative 127 to 128. So I'm just going to add 8. All right, so now inside of our byte, we have 8 as our numerical data, our value. So we have a variable called first number. We have it as a byte, and it's holding the number 8. All right, so next we have a short, and we've named it second number. Now we're going to equate it to, let's say, 12. All right, well, let's go a little bit larger just to define it a little bit more than, a byte. All right, so we've got 64 because a short can hold more than a byte, and they're going up in size. All right, so in an integer, in an int, we can hold up to 32 bits. So now let's put a number such as 128, right? So, and can't forget that equal sign. All right, so now our int has been declared, and we've named it third number, and now we're holding inside of it 128. Now over here at the long, as you can see, all you have to do, type the equal sign, and then you hold a numerical value. So I'm just going to go through and add them in long. Okay, So now we're going to get to a point where we have to do something special for this long. So let's type our long number. That's my long number. All right, and probably add one. All right, so that's my long number. Now, you could just leave it like this, right? But I think that it's appropriate to add what is officially needed, and that's an L on the end of this long number. All right, just to be safe and follow the proper convention, L, because L, we know it stands for long, to officially declare that this is a long number. All right, float. Now, we know that floats, they're not like these other numbers here. They're not just regular values. They're decimal values. So float right here. I'm going to come in here and set that equal to 32.4. All right, now we've got a problem. All right, so we've got 32.4. Now it's saying incompatible types required float and it found a double. Why did it find a double? Because this is just a regular decimal value. Now, both of these are decimal values, but again, as I said, with this L on the back of this number, we're going to have to put the character F to officially declare that this is a float, all right? So next we have double, and we've named it 6 number, and let's give it also a decimal value, 73.7. All right, so now it's not complaining, all right, that because it knows that this is a double value, but indeed we can officially say that there is a D on the back of that, and that makes it a double value. All right, so these are 6 numerical data types. Now, you can imagine what can you do with these, all right? So what do we do with numbers? You can do whatever you can do with a number, you can do with these variables here. All right, so we could add them together, we could subtract them, we could divide them, we could do anything mathematically with these numbers. All right, and just to prove that, actually I'm going to do that in the next video. So to wrap up, these are 6 numerical data types, and naming a variable, just name it like this if you want. Whatever you want to name it, you can name it, but you just cannot use keywords or these words for data types. You must use normal words. You cannot use something that's been already used by the Java programming language, all right? And I usually use camel case, but also what else is acceptable here? You can use things like underscore, you can use things like $, and that's just naming convention, what you can use. You cannot use keywords. Anything like that or this is acceptable. All right, so thank you for watching again, and I hope you learned a lot, and I'll see you in the next video, and thank you. Have a nice day.